Coming up in today's newscast, Israeli officials threaten Airbnb with sanctions and lawsuits over their recent decision on the West Bank. We take a closer look at the winery fighting discriminatory practices in Europe as well, and Israeli actress Gal Gadot breaks the internet with Wreck-It Ralph in her animated film debut. Israeli ministries are all still clamoring to defend the country this week in the wake of Airbnb's decision to drop all listings in Israeli West Bank settlements. The international property rental giant announced Monday that after spending, quote, considerable time with experts on the conflict, Airbnb concluded that they should remove the listings which they say are at the core of the dispute between Israelis and Palestinians. Many BDS and pro-Palestinian activists worldwide have lauded the decision, saying it's a step in the right direction towards ending the conflict.
So this decision was taken by Airbnb because it was the only way they could comply with their responsibilities under the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. It was not tenable to be facilitating rentals on land stolen from Palestinians who are not able to stay there.
But officials in Israel have called the decision illegal and discriminatory against Israelis and Jews, and have taken a number of steps at fighting it domestically and internationally. Tourism Minister Yariv Levin threatened to levy a high tax and legal repercussions against Airbnb, calling the move racist and a double standard.
This decision is something completely unacceptable. This is a pure discrimination, something that is taken only against Jews that are living in Judea and Samaria.
Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked went further, requesting already that Attorney General Mandelblit consider indictments against Airbnb as well. Shaked argues that the ban on listings in the West Bank violates the prohibition of discrimination in products, services, and entry into public places and places of entertainment law. And Strategic Affairs Minister Gal Gadot chimed in that the BDS boycott of Israel and terrorism are two sides of the same coin, as they both justify violence against Israelis. He explained that while their means are different, their aim is the same, quote, to end the existence of Israel as a Jewish state, end quote. But perhaps the biggest loss here is simply the lost opportunity to connect people, which, by the way, is Airbnb's stated purpose.
Of course, for us, it's of course we are not happy with it. Hopefully, they will understand that their customers, as all the rest of the tourists and the visitors of Israel, want to come and see and experience all of Israel, and not just a small part of it. To see all of Israel, to experience all of Israel, to experience the Judean Samaria as well, to see where the biblical stories happen, and to feel the atmosphere of this beautiful, amazing country.
Amidst rising tensions between Israel and Jordan following Amman's announcement not to renew a 25-year-old land lease, a Jordanian delegation has now arrived in the Jewish state to request a larger allocation of fresh water. Israel already sets aside roughly 50 million cubic meters of freshwater annually for the Hashemite kingdom, but both Jordan and Israel have been suffering under heavy drought for nearly 6 full years. While the meeting to review this issue and look at other related international agreements took place on Monday between Israel and Jordan officials on a joint water scarcity committee. And according to early reports, Jordan's request for more freshwater above the 50 million cubic meters now only has to go through Energy Minister Yuval Steinitz of the Likud for approval. From Israel's side, Steinitz then reportedly requested permission for drilling operations in the Arava Desert around the Dead Sea Basin and adjacent to the Jordanian border. Time will tell if this back and forth can lead to stronger ties, though, or further divisions. The large consensus on both sides right now is that while the peace treaty is not at risk, affection for the other is practically non-existent. Aside from disagreements over the handling of Jerusalem, Gaza, and the West Bank, Jordan last month also announced it would not renew lease agreements along the border with Israel for agricultural use. And while this is not a violation in any way of the peace agreement between the two countries, it is largely viewed as a step towards a crumbling relationship. In a somewhat unusual statement, United States President Donald Trump on Tuesday admitted that yes, the CIA did conclude that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman did indeed order the killing of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi in Turkey, but that because of ties and interests related to Israel, the White House will continue to support the Saudi regime regardless. Joining me with the implications of this announcement is Middle East expert from the Begin Sadat Center at Bar Ilan University, Dr. Mordechai Kedar. Dr. Kedar, it's a pleasure to have you back.
My honor.
All right, so my first question, what kind of message does Trump's speech, his statement, send to the rest of the world about, the United States' enforcement to justice and, a commitment to justice and enforcing, world laws?
Well, he tries to address two issues. One is Saudi Arabia as a state, an ally, a friend, I would say the anchor of the bloc against Iran. This is one side, which he definitely supports and wants to keep.
Sure.
However, he has a problem with one person, Mohammed bin Salman. And this is what makes the whole thing a little bit shaky, because the world definitely doesn't want to be in the same frame with Mohammed bin Salman, but his bigger problem is domestically, from his own family. Means there is now, and it was reported by Reuters, that there is now some princess of the royal family of Saudi Arabia, which is like more than 1,000 people.
Sure.
Only the cousins, means the grandchildren of Abdulaziz, the one who founded the kingdom, there is some people organized in order to change him or to replace him by another candidate. Could be his uncle, could be somebody else, but definitely they do not want to see the man.
How can something like that be done? How do you switch out a crown prince?
Well, there is, officially, there is what they call Hayat al-Bay'ah in Arabic. It means the council of allegiance. Means the people who are actually choose the next king. Yet, the current king has much to say about this. So if he wants his son to replace him, he will refer to this council in order to be a stamp for his decision. However, now there is a new wave of resentment within the royal family in order to change the man. Not only because of what happened with the Khashoggi, but because of what happened last November, last year, when Mohammed bin Salman caught some dozens of his cousins, older people, much more experienced, in the Ritz-Carlton, and he humiliated them by keeping them in the Ritz-Carlton, which is a 1,000-star hotel, kept them in the lobby, sleeping on the floor. This is humiliation. And the humiliation is the last thing you can do in this region, the Middle East. And this is how he treated his cousins, who are much more older than him and much more experienced. And they did not forget and did not forgive. So if you combine the two things together, what he did to his cousins and what he did now to Khashoggi, the man, in my view, is finished. Now, either he lives peacefully and delegates the authority to another man in a peaceful way, Saudi Arabia will, or the royal family, will continue to reign the country.
Sure.
However, he might be already preparing his supporters, maybe some kind of the army. Don't forget that he is also the Minister of Defense, and he has the ability to arrange the army in order to fight, real fight, for his personal survival. And if this scenario happens, it is more or less the end of the united family of the Saudi regime. And this might be totally devastating for the Middle East, because if Saudi Arabia shatters to pieces,
they're a rock in the Middle East.
This is the anchor of the coalition against Iran. And this might be a game changer in the whole region.
All right. Dr. Gadot, thank you so much for coming in. I wish we could continue this further, but unfortunately we've run out of time. Thank you so much for coming in. All right, now, much to the surprise of the other involved nations, Prime Minister Netanyahu announced on Tuesday that Israel will not be joining the United Nations' Global Migration Compact. In a prepared press statement, the Prime Minister said that, quote, "We have a duty to protect our borders against illegal infiltrators," end quote. And that's why he instructed the Foreign Ministry not to sign the Migration Pact in Marrakesh next month. The compact is a non-legally binding contract put together in the UN earlier this year, and it was set for final approval in Morocco December 10th and 11th. And the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration primarily outlines objective goals to improve data collection on migrants, address the initial reasons for migration, to use detention of migrants as a last resort, eliminate sex and human trafficking, provide flexibility and accurate and timely information during all stages of migration, and much, much more. But rising conflict between the Israeli government and the migrants and asylum seekers already in the country have created tensions Netanyahu isn't eager to exacerbate. In related news, Ethiopian Jews still waiting for transport to Israel as promised are crying foul after further delays leave the 8,000 Jews in the country stuck where they are. Only 1,000 of the Ethiopian Jews awaiting permission were given permits to make Aliyah, despite promises made by the Likud government as far back as 2015. Hundreds of Ethiopians from the Jewish community in Addis Ababa came together in protest, with head coordinator Negusa Zemeni Alemu telling the Associated Press that he, quote, doesn't believe the Israeli government has a financial problem to immigrate the remaining Ethiopian Jews back to Israel, but rather that it's a political move or racism, end quote. Meanwhile, Ethiopians in Israel have also continued to face discrimination in the country, with the latest incident occurring just this week in Ashdod. Police detectives who were called to a high school violently apprehended a 15-year-old Ethiopian-Israeli student as the principal who called the cops looked on. Video released to the Khan News broadcaster shows the boy being strangled, punched, and dragged out of the building, and the boy's sister told reporters that police claims lately have been a near-daily occurrence in the school since the hiring of their new principal. Police deny any claims of racist action.
Last month, in a dramatic French court ruling, French authorities decided to both suspend the practice of a discriminatory labeling of Israeli products and also to take the issue up the ladder back to the European Union. 3 years ago, the EU issued a directive to mark Israeli products made in the West Bank, the Golan Heights, and Jerusalem as made in the colonies rather than made in Israel. Well, that directive sparked massive criticisms of racism and a lawsuit that culminated in France's recent decision to drop the directorate. The lawsuit was brought forth by Israeli winery Psagot, and this is their story. The Psagot winery, which was also chosen by World Finance as Israel's top winery of 2018, is no stranger to fighting for its place on the shelf. In fact, the legal battle in France was the second victory for the company after they fought in Canada against BDS as well. Elie Sales, the managing partner for Psagot's exports, said that Canada gave them, quote, a big fight last January when they banned Psagot from their liquor stores, and we fought back, and within 48 hours they retracted their ban and restocked our wines on their stores. But in Europe, Psagot was the only Israeli company to sue France for BDS. No other Israeli body took part in the case. They chose France for the lawsuit as the EU labeling law contradicted French discrimination law directly, offering the best chance that the lawsuit will progress towards the rest of Europe. But the trouble now is indeed how the EU will react. Though the lawsuit is seen as a great victory, the European courts could overturn the decision, ultimately meaning that we won the battle but lost the war. We'll update the story as details are revealed, but for now, all eyes are on the court. Israel finally recently introduced a bill that would legalize and regulate competitive poker playing, bringing into the light a massive world of sports that wasn't trying to hide, save from the fines and jail time imposed on offenders, of course. Well, now, ahead of all the changes, the founder of the Israeli Poker Academy and the poker fighting training app, Stas Tishkevich, is here to fill in the details. Stas, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for hosting me, Aaron.
It's my pleasure. All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Poker Fighter, and your academy, all that. Tell us everything.
So I've been in the Israeli poker scene for quite some years. I was originally a pro poker player. I was the first Israeli to pay taxes for his online poker earnings on PokerStars, the biggest site online. I started coaching poker. I founded the Israeli Poker Academy that teaches poker through a series of frontal lectures and guided live practice. And the Poker Fighter training app, where you can play for free without risking any money and get immediate feedback and advice from the computer, our AI, that tells you what to do and why.
That's
in a very simple language.
All right, so have you been kind of under the watchful eye of the government for a long time then? Because you just, you just mentioned that you paid taxes for
It's
poker.
funny, like when I was playing poker, and the first thing that came up to my mind is, who am I afraid of more, the police or the tax authorities? And I think this is with no question the tax authorities. So the first thing I did was going and paying taxes. People told me, you are crazy. They will come to you and knock on your door and so far. As long as you pay your taxes on time, everything is good.
All right, well, that's good to know then. All right, so what's, I'm assuming you're keeping up with the news here, with respect to the regulation. What are you most excited for? How likely do you think it is to pass?
So what we need to understand is this is something that we worked on for a year. Mm-hmm. When I say we, it's the Israeli Poker Player Association, a non-profit organization that started a big campaign to regulate poker in Israel. We've fundraised through Head Start, crowdfunding, in the beginning of 2018, 250,000 shekels. Wow. We used this money to hire lobbyists and lawyers and public relationship people that help us to get in contact with Sharon Eskel, the Knesset member from the Likud. Together we built a very good, in my opinion, bill to regulate poker tournaments in Israel as a sportive activity, so that we can host here big international events. Why not EPT Jerusalem?
Sure.
Why not WPT Eilat? To bring tourism during winter times. And the main thing we want to do is Israeli Poker Championship in Israel. Why people need to go to Cyprus or Bulgaria to play poker to be the Israeli champion in Bulgaria?
Well, and also, I mean, I think in the end of the day, it really just does come back down to the argument that you apparently hired lobbyists to make, which is, you know, poker is a game, it's a tournament game, it's a competitive game, it's a game of sport and not of chance. And I'm glad that we're advancing that here because it's incredibly popular.
Everybody plays. This is what we need to understand. This is a norm, not only in Israel, but also abroad. People enjoying this sport. And when you have people that are in danger to be addicted, the only thing we can do is to help them through regulation. Sure. Nowadays, where people play the underground games, their objective is to... Exactly.
All right. Well, Stas, thank you so much for coming in. It's really been a pleasure to learn about this. Check out, all you people at home, check out the Poker Fighter.
I Love Poker, COIL,
pokerfighter.co.il, and download the Poker Fighter training app. Stas, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Now, you may not know this, but the news can get very expensive. CNN, for example, spends over $700 million a year on news gathering alone, yet there's still no guarantee that they'll get the shot they want when the news breaks. That's why the media giant CNN has now turned to Israeli startup Snappers for the solution, and ILTV's Doriel Mizrahi is here with the details.
Hey Aaron, so this startup is based in Or Yehuda, and Snappers has built an app that allows anyone with a smartphone to become an instant video stringer. This is going to be a huge help for major media networks as well for bloggers and really anyone looking to get better and more updated content for less.
How does it work exactly then?
Okay, so let's say you're in Indonesia when an earthquake hits, which knock on wood won't happen, but all you have to do is pull out your phone, open the Snappers app, and start recording. On the platform, a Snappers customer like CNN can then see your location and that you're filming, and the customer can then ask to use your video, either a live one or a pre-recorded version uploaded afterwards. And there are so many other cool features as well.
All right, well, I can't imagine anything more helpful for this industry, honestly, but I gotta ask, what happens if inappropriate content gets filmed during the live feed? Are there any sort of protections in place?
So actually, yes. First, there's a reporter rating system, so you can really get to know the Snapper users and how professional they are. Also in the app, there's a built-in delay system, even in the live streams, so a broadcast can be stopped before any unwanted content slips in.
Oh, is anyone other than CNN interested? For
sure. Along with CNN, there's also Israel's Sport 5 cable channel, which used Snappers to cover the recent World Cup. And another sports company in the UK called Copa 90 is also a client, along with Mercedes and many more.
All right, well, I'm definitely going to be checking this out, because maybe we'll start using some Snappers of our own in the future. But anyway, thanks for coming in, Dorian.
Thank you for having me.
An early depiction of Jesus has now just been revealed in a 6th century Byzantine church. The discovery comes out of the ancient village of Shivta in the south of Israel and was made by Dr. Emma Ma'ayan Fanor from Haifa University.
The faint painting of Jesus shows a youth with short curly hair, a prolonged face, and an elongated nose, and admittedly the image is so faint that to the untrained eye you'd likely miss it entirely. To most, the lines captured in the image look somewhat like iron stains often found after a desert rain. So for the sake of the report, Dr. Mayan Fanar generated a penciled reconstruction over the photograph taken by her husband, and it indeed portrays a portrait of a young man. Still, Dr. Fanar said that she had help from a combination of conditions to make the discovery. The researcher said that during her last visit to the church, she found herself under the image on an apse by chance. Quote, "I was under the apse at the right place at the right time. It's just so hidden, it's impossible to see, but the conditions of the light were just right," end quote. The Shifta area is a popular site for archaeological excavations, and findings suggest a strong Christian community existed there for hundreds of years.
In recent years, more and more people are choosing to leave their busy city lifestyles for a more simple, relaxing atmosphere. And in fact, in the past 10 years alone, the Israeli population just in southern cities has doubled, making huge advancements in high tech, agriculture, and more along the way. Well, ILTV's Natalie Tversky recently paid the South a visit in her weekly travel program, Cruising Israel, and she joins us here now with more. So, Natalie, what's the story?
Hey, Aaron. So on this week's show, Max and I explored the south of Israel and all of its wonders, and specifically the Arava Desert. Now, I know that Israel's center is the go-to for most people during their travels, but the Arava is a whole experience in itself.
All right, so what did you see?
Well, as I said, if you catch the show, you'll see all the different towns and moshavim we got to go to, the beautiful desert landscapes, and more. We also checked out a bunch of greenhouses and learned all about how people are actually succeeding in making the desert bloom.
Which is amazing, I must say, because, I don't know about the last time you tried to plant something in the sand, but it's really hard, so I'm very impressed.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in places like these, miracles are happening every single day.
All right, well, I'm very excited. Let's take a look at the clip.
Agriculture is just one of the major industries that Israel excels at, and the bulk of it all is happening in some of the country's driest lands.
The agricultural moshav of En Yahav in Israel's central Arava is the oldest and largest in the region. Here is where 60% of Israel's fresh vegetable export originates and is home to 160 greenhouses, all filled with vegetables such as peppers, melons, pumpkins, and even 40 varieties of tomatoes.
This is where most of the money comes from in the Arava, growing those amazing peppers and selling them around the world. Good, right?
Very crunchy.
Oh my gosh, that footage looks gorgeous, Natalie. It looks like you must have had a lot of fun.
Definitely, and those were some of the tastiest peppers I've ever had. So you guys have to go check it out. They invite visitors to not only learn about the process of growing veggies in the desert, but also they allow you to pick some yourself.
All right, well, this is making me very hungry, so I'll see you there, Natalie.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for coming in, and everyone at home, make sure you catch the rest of Cruising Israel with our world-famous cameraman, Max Fetterman, and of course, the very talented Natalie Tursky. Natalie, thank you. Ralph Breaks the Internet, the Disney sequel to critically acclaimed animated film Wreck-It Ralph, well, broke the internet this weekend as it was received by overwhelmingly positive reviews. And for Israeli superstar actress Gal Gadot, the film has become her animated feature debut, and believe me, she killed it. The film, as I mentioned before, is a sequel to the 2012 film Wreck-It Ralph and hit theaters in both the United States and Israel this weekend. The movie shows the two young friends, Ralph, voiced by John C. Reilly, and Vanellope, voiced by Sarah Silverman, as they go online to find a replacement video game part. But of course, they fall into all sorts of crazy corners of the internet along the way, and that's when they meet Gadot's character, Shank. Like Vanellope in the last film, Shank is a driver in a racing game and becomes an integral part in their journey. And Rich Moore and Phil Johnson, the film's co-directors, revealed that when they asked Gal Gadot to play Shank in Ralph Breaks the Internet, she was very excited at the prospect, especially to be singing in the animation. And finally, reviews of the Disney film, as I've said, have been very positive, given that the animated film shows many layers and a sharp critique of the internet culture. Film critic Katie Walsh of the Tribune News Agency said, quote, "Ralph Breaks the Internet is a fresh, smart, funny, and most importantly, comprehensible analysis of both internet culture and the complexities of interpersonal relationships," end quote. And the New York Times' Bill G. Beatty said he loved the film's ornate imagery and delirious, irreverent humor. So congratulations again to Gal for another amazing performance. And if you haven't already seen it, go hit the theaters soon for Ralph Breaks the Internet. And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Between the Snappers app, Instagram, and Snapchat, everyone in the world can become a video content provider. So today's word is sirton, meaning a short video clip or recording. Now, videos or sirtonim are everywhere. We see sirtonim all over the internet and on social media, on YouTube, or even just in messages between friends. And there are informative videos or sirtonim that tell you about the news or how to perform a skill and such, and entertainment-based sirtonim made to make us laugh and cry, etc. Even this show, by the end of the night, gets cut up into little sirtonim or clips before being uploaded to the web. Just remember to be careful with what you film in your sirton, because once it goes up, it'll likely never come down. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be cloudy and cool with a chance of rain and a low of 62 or 17 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow you can expect an additional drop in temperatures and thunderstorms scattered across the country. The high should be around 74 or 23 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.74 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you for watching.